Look, we do have one interview to go, and it's one that I picked up off a story I read in mainstream media, a piece by Jonathan Hill, who's now described as a corporate affairs consultant, but also a deer hunter. And it's just one of those pieces I read. I then thought, God, that makes just such common sense. Why can't we crack into that? To explain what the issue is and what a solution is, we are joined now by Jonathan Hill. Jonathan, how are you, mate?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you, Sean. How are you?
Good. All right. Look,
Okay.
first up, let's define the problem. We've got introduced deer in New Zealand, and they quite like it here, and they breed well, and a whole lot of New Zealanders like shooting them, right?
That's pretty much right.
Okay. Have we got too many deer, and do we need more people to shoot them?
100% yes to both. I think most town people would probably be really surprised to understand how bad the deer problem has actually got. And just stop me, Sean, if I'm going into too much detail or if I'm rambling on. But when I was thinking about this the other day, it took me a decade to shoot my first deer.
Hey, Jonathan, are you on speakerphone?
No, I'm just.
Okay, all right. You're a little bit echoey, that's all.
Hold on, let me switch.
Okay.
Is that better, Sean?
That's way better. Okay, you sound like you're with us now. Excellent. Okay.
Okay. Well, I was like I said, if I'm raving on, stop me. But it took me a decade to shoot my first deer. It was hard work. But these days, I go out and I see 100 in a day. They're absolutely everywhere. They're destroying the country's native forests. But the real issue is, I do a bit of work with an agri company that spends $1 million a year controlling wild deer on properties across the country, and they shoot literally thousands and thousands and thousands of them every year. And unfortunately, these wild deer are just left to rot on the ground. And the reason for that is there's this ridiculous policy situation where, and again, stop me if there's too much detail.
No.
Regional councils go out into farms across the country and they use a poison called brodifacoum to control possum.
Slowly,
Brodifacoum.
Brodifacoum. Is that 1080 or not? It's different.
Nah, it's quite different.
Okay.
Arguably worse, but that's subjective. And this poison is administered in bait stations across farms all over the country. And it used to be 30-odd years ago. It used to be dispersed by helicopters, and people used to.
So you just spread pellets of brodifacoum.
Yeah. So nowadays, brodifacoum is dispersed on farms by regional councils and bait stations.
All right. So it's a controlled application of the genocidal measure, if you like.
Yeah, well, it's a toxin. Yeah. And it is controlled, and it is in farm paddocks all over the country, and it's reasonably important for control.
The bait stations for brodifacoum. Now, why are you wanting to kill these animals? Because of tuberculosis, right?
TB, yeah, and preserving access to export markets and all that kind of good stuff. But the situation is now that we used to scatter this stuff around. Now it is tightly dispersed in bait stations, but you can sell a farmed deer from a paddock with a brodifacoum bait station in it.
A farmed deer, okay, right, yep.
But if you shoot a wild deer in the same paddock, or even 2 kilometres away, and you have all the appropriate accreditations and licences, and you're certified, you can't sell that. You can't process and sell that deer. So
because it used to be at risk of being tainted by brodifacoum when they used to just spread it around willy-nilly.
Exactly, but that hasn't happened for decades now, and so we've got this situation where the law and you can't shoot a wild deer and process it for meat within there's a 2 kilometre radius from that bait station and a 3-year stands down period. So effectively, the effect of all of this legislation is just locking up huge swathes of the country and making the recovery and sale of wild venison, goats.
So when people shoot deer in those locations now, they just literally leave chop the horns off and stick the antlers on the study wall, but people
like me who go out and hunt them, we eat them, and that's fine. But
how do you know they haven't got TB?
I don't. Look, I don't. It's just a measure of faith. I process the animal. I have a good look at it. If it looks pretty good, I eat it, and it's fine.
So you home kill?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a hunter. I hunt as often as I can, and there's never been a problem with me or anyone I know in eating wild game.
All right. So what would be the effect if they changed this law so that you could process deer shot within 2 kilometres of a Bredificum bait station, and there was no 3-year moratorium on shooting or processing deer shot near such places? What do you think the effect would be?
Well, farmers would start to make a decent amount of money. They would be incentivised to control their wild deer problem, which now costs a fortune to send a helicopter up and shoot deer by the 100. But I've been
because
talking to
why they would be able to sell the meat.
Exactly.
Okay. Yep.
The pest controllers would have an income stream, and our freezing works would have more animals to process. But the venison price is pretty good at the moment, and I was talking to a wild venison exporter who told me about the crazy situation they're in, whereby they cannot meet international demand for wild New Zealand venison because they can't process the animals.
It's a pretty good eat too, I've got to say. It is a pretty good eat.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Really, really high quality meat. And there are literally just probably tens of thousands of them just being left to rot on the ground every year.
Wow. Look, this seems such a practical solution. I think it's a win-win-win-win idea.
I agree.
Jonathan, have you thrown it past anyone who might be able to do something about it, mate?
Yeah, we've raised it with officials.
No, I said someone who can do something about it.
Well, I'm frustrated that this situation is still here, and it seems to be very, very hard to move. So that's why I wrote the piece and published it, and that's why I'm talking to you, because I want to just try and raise some awareness around a crazy situation where you can sell a farmed animal from a paddock, but in the same paddock, if you shoot a wild animal, even with all the accreditations, you can't. It just makes no sense.